Indiana and Sacramento teamed up. Two of my favorite trade bait guys in the league were in this trade. So Domantas Sabonis goes to Sacramento along with Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday. Indiana gets Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson's expiring, and Tyrese Haliburton, who I thought was off the table. I love Sabonis. I was hoping the Celtics would trade for him. I said I was even irrationally hoping they would give up Smart and Time Lord for him, which I know is a dumb trade, but that's how much I like Sabonis. At the same time, you can't trade Haliburton. What are you doing, Sacramento? Honestly, what are you doing? He's 21. There's like 8 point guards in the league that know how to run a team, that check off the advanced metric boxes. I mean, there was some great stuff today. All the advanced metrics NBA people that I follow on Twitter and respect, they all went nuts. Like Kurt Goldsberry, my former Grantland colleague, he had a bunch of tweets about Haliburton's somehow 11th in assists and 12th in steals. 12 games without Fox, he averaged 19 and 10. Catch and shoot threes, which he really had to do the last couple of years because he had to play with Fox for the last year and a half. 42.6% on catch and shoot threes, according to Kirk. And then on off the dribble threes, second, 40.6. So he's checking all of these efficiency stuff, like his field goal percentage was 58.7. I don't really fully understand that one, but I know that's good for a guard. But then John Schumann from NBA.com, he had about best pull-up threes. Haliburton's second behind Mike Conley in percentage. And then when you talk about assist turnover ratio, which is another thing we love with point guards, he's third behind Chris Paul and Murray and the Spurs. So look, I'm just giving you the stats. Eye test, loved him in college, could not believe he fell, thought there was a chance that he could follow the Celtics. Of course he didn't. The Suns famously passed him at 10, took Jalen Smith, and now didn't even give Jalen Smith, they didn't even renew his third-year option. So you think the Suns are the best player in the best team in the league, and they also could have had Haliburton really easily, and he would have been the absolute, unbelievable, perfect third guard for a Booker, Chris Paul backguard. Holy shit, that's a what if. Indiana steals him. And as much as I like Sabonis, I just can't get over the fact that the Kings gave up Haliburton. I can't believe it. The Kings, so we used to make fun of them at Grantland, which Grantland existed from 2011 to 2015. And at that point, the Kings were entering their second half decade of just being morons. And finally, Grantland ends, we start the Ringer, the Kings still being morons. And just, you think like for 12 years, from like 06 to 2018, they were the dumbest team in the league. And then they take Bagley over Luka, which we were doing a live draft show when that happened. We were all having a stroke. They gave away Bogdanovich for reasons that remain unclear. They just didn't want to play him. They drafted 3 point guards in the span of 4 years, gave an extension to the wrong run, De'Aaron Fox, who I still feel like is relatively untradeable at that contract unless you're taking somebody else's problem like Julius Randle. And then out of the 3 point guards, they trade the wrong one. So, you think like, what have been the Kings' highlights for the last, decade? I guess it would be the fact that they sold high on Boogie Cousins, even though that seemed terrible at the time, and picking Haliburton, not fucking that up, just taking the right guy when he fell to, I think, number 12, and then they trade him anyway. I'm just telling you, I rarely go all in with predictions, and you kind of know, like, I'll be like, I think this is a mistake, whatever, here's my take. And rarely, especially with NBA, will I just go all in. I think Haliburton is an absolute star. I think he's a future All-NBA guy. I think he could be the second best guy on a championship team, potentially. I don't think he can be the first best guy, but I think he can be the second best guy. I think he could potentially be a piece, if you had a really good team around him, of a team that won a round or two in the playoffs. And putting him with Rick Carlisle is unbelievable. He checks every box that I have for as somebody who'd be a good point guard. And the thing is, as much as I like Sabonis, it's just harder to find guys like Haliburton. Like, I look at the Celtics, the team that I watch all the time, obviously. And, there's always like, got to get a point guard, got to get a point guard, got to get a point guard. Well, there are no point guards. That's why they were linked with Jalen Brunson. That's why Marcus Smart, playing well the last couple of weeks, taking umbrage to the fact that everybody's saying the Celtics just need a point guard. The fact is, there's not a lot of point guards. And that's why Chris Paul at age 37 is still dominant and still stands out, because there's so few of him. When I was growing up, we had Tiny Archibald and Mo Cheeks, and we just, Norm Nixon, Gus Williams. There was a slew of these guys who knew how to run a team. And I think the way basketball has evolved over the last, really since the threes took over, you just, the true point guard who can run a team, get everyone involved, pick his spots. It's not that much different than, honestly, being a podcast host and hosting a podcast that has you and three other people on it, especially in the Zoom era. It's really hard to do a 4-person podcast, right? You need somebody that knows how to move the ball and doesn't have a high usage rate, doesn't step on people and all that stuff. It's hard to do. It's even harder to run a basketball team. It's hard to get everybody the ball in the spots that they like, to pick your spots when you take over. And that's why Chris Paul, that's why we've been calling him the point guard forever. So Haliburton, even though on paper this trade is still a little weird for Indiana, because you look at their team, first of all, they're tanking. So, getting a 21-year-old guy is great for them, who has a chance to be a star. They have Haliburton and Duarte, Miles Turner, who's hurt, Buddy Hield, who is a shooter that they can either keep or spin. And they have Brogdon. They have their pick because they're tanking, and they got Cleveland's pick in that LeVert trade. Brogdon, they just gave an extension. He's going to be hard to trade until this summer. I think Haliburton and Brogdon are a weird fit together. And I ultimately don't care, because I like Haliburton way more than Brogdon. And ultimately, they don't care either. They're just trying to get assets and picks and rebuild. The problem for them is if they're trying to tank, which they have a chance because they're in the bottom 4 in the East, Haliburton makes it harder because he's really good. And he'll make the team that they have, whatever pieces that are left, he'll make those guys better. Sabonis on the Kings, I just don't understand. So you look at their team, Sabonis, Fox, Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, who's completely redundant with Sabonis, Davion Mitchell, Lamb, Holiday, and then a bunch of other pieces. And they think they could be in the play-in game, or the play-in tournament like New Orleans did, which is why New Orleans been the McCollum trade. I just think, I don't know what I have with Fox other than a guy who is really expensive, who does not seem like he has a chance to be a top 10 guy at his position. So when you're paying borderline max for somebody who probably will never be a top 10 point guard at his position, man, that's tough. Especially when you have Haliburton, you have him under control for 3 more years, but you figure you give him the extension after year 4, and then that's another 4 at least. So you basically had him for 6 more years. But because you gave Fox that extension, you felt like you had to trade Haliburton. And because you spent a lottery pick on Mitchell, you felt like Haliburton's expendable. It's the classic, terrible NBA team thinking of, we've made these mistakes in the past, so we're going to make this 3rd mistake to try to justify the other 2 mistakes. This is what I grew up with. This was the NBA in the 70s and 80s. We used to have these Haliburton Sabonis trades all the time. We would make fun of them. They were even in the 2000s. One of the reasons my column took off on ESPN was because it was so much fun to make fun of the terrible trades and the bad transactions and all that stuff. So somehow the Kings did it again. And I almost wanted to have a moment of silence to start this podcast for the Kings fans, because I can't believe, if I had Haliburton for a year and a half and my team traded him, I would lose my mind. I thought he was untouchable. Even when the Ben Simmons rumor started with him, I didn't believe it, because I was like, there's no way they're trading Haliburton for Ben Simmons. Bullshit. I call BS on this. And I was right, because they weren't trading him for Simmons. And then they get Sabonis. Now, you could argue Simmons or Sabonis, who's a better asset. But either way, I'm keeping Haliburton. So I thought that was dumb.